Let's just pretend that we actually cast this whole castle in white plastic. If we wanted to paint it, we would have to put a dark gray base coat of some kind under it. Now, since we used the Man Ease Release 200 when we did the casting, paint will stick to it in a limited form. In other words, I could use this latex paint here, dry brush it on, and it would probably stick to this castle just fine. But if I took a dark gray paint, thinned it down with water and slopped it on and tried to get it down into all the details and mop up the rest, I'm not sure that it would really stick very well. I think the plastic might repel it with that much water in it. You know, you could use regular spray paint. This is like a black primer that I could spray onto here and it would actually stick. Since I used the Man Ease Release 200 on the mold, spray painting will stick to this fairly nice. And this is a solvent base, so it will kind of get in there and it will actually stick to the plastic. But there's another problem. The problem is in the nature of the buildings. I could spray paint this using the black primer. The problem is it's difficult to get spray paint into these little windows and behind the building and back into the cracks. And in other little places, it's just difficult to get spray paint there because the nature and the shape of these actual buildings. If it was anything else, I could probably do it. If it was graveyard fence pieces, I could probably spray them just fine and they would work great. But these city castle pieces will not work that way. So, the only solution that I could really find was to go ahead and color the plastic itself and, you know, put it in the casting material so the dark gray plastic is already its own base coat. So now that we have that out of the way, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and dry brush. Now this is going to be exactly the same dry brushing as I show on every single project I do, so feel free to fast forward past this if you already know what I'm doing here. Most people, if you do, what it is this is the light gray of the castle gray colors. Just look up on the website for what the recipe is. I think it's 8 parts white and 1 part black, something like that, or and this is just regular latex house paint. So what I'm going to do, I'm not thinning it at all. This is just like straight out of the can. You can also use just acrylic craft paint and that will do just fine. Notice I dipped it in and I'm getting on a paper towel to wipe just about all of it off of the brush, so there's hardly anything going anywhere on here. And what you want to do is you might go ahead and brush it on the bottom. It looks like when I'm brushing it on the bottom I'm getting a few little brush strokes, but you know what? That looks pretty good. I think I'm ready to go on this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on a section that I'm not as worried about, and I'm just going to lightly brush over this, kind of like that, and you can see that this is really picking up the details pretty well on here. Okay, so you can see that that's actually coming out. I've got a little bit of an under piece here. And by the way, this little piece, I just assembled it out of the blocks. This is not one of the pieces from the Hirstopolis game. This is just something I made up to demonstrate how to do the painting on here. So you can see by just kind of lightly doing a jabbing motion and be sure almost all of the paint is out of there, I am able to go ahead and put a dry brush on. Look at it. Wow, look at the difference on that. Okay, this is an example, one that's unpainted compared to one that's painted. So you can kind of see the details really starting to come out there. Now, as you start to run out of paint, it's probably going to take a little while before I run out. I'll be able to get this piece probably almost completely done here. So what I'm doing is kind of dry brushing it on, and you'll notice that the paint actually is sticking to it. I'm going to pick up a little more paint from the paper towel that's over here, and I'm actually going to very lightly start applying it again, and I'm going to do this all over the whole piece. Now, I think that this actually looks pretty good for, just an easy paint job. Now, some of you who are really into this and you want more definition, you want a greater variety of colors from dark to light, what you might do is add more of the black colorant to the plastic when you cast this thing. I added 15 drops per 3 ounces of part A and 3 ounces of part B to get this kind of gray that I've got on here, and I think it's kind of a nice medium gray for a game. It'll look great for the game if you want to try to play the game with it. But if you're really picky about the pieces, if you really want to show the detail and do more work, you might want to use maybe 25 to 30 drops of the colorant in there for 3 ounces of A and 3 ounces of B. And then you can kind of put a medium gray over top of it to dry brush, and then dry brush it with a little a lighter gray to finish up with. Now this is kind of a before and after shot. This is what the plastic looked before, unpainted, just the dark there, and this is what it looks like afterwards. So you can kind of compare. Look at all the detail that comes out. This is just from one easy dry brushing of light gray on top of that dark gray plastic. I think it looks pretty good. So the paint job on this is really fairly easy to do.